I thought he was cheating on me with my friend until I caught him in bed with her daughter. I went to my daughter's that day, but we had a fight. I returned home without warning. I heard his heavy breathing in the kitchen. I ran to him because I thought he was sick, but I felt sick. The 30-year-old girl who shared the tiramisu recipe with me yesterday was lying on my kitchen table without clothes. My husband was kissing her. You'd think a woman like me would scream. The way it happens in the movies, the betrayed wife always shrieks like a kettle, throws a vase, maybe collapses dramatically on the tile. But when I saw my husband's bare back over that girl's body, my first thought was almost stupidly practical. Well, there goes the kitchen table. Daniel? I heard my own voice before I registered I'd spoken. It sounded wrong, flat, like it belonged to someone older, someone watching this from somewhere above. He jerked his head up first, eyes wide, hair damp with sweat. She followed a second later, that pretty 30-year-old body half twisting, the same hands that had stirred mascarpone and espresso with me the day before now flying to cover herself. Nettily, he choked, like I'd walked in on him being robbed. I just stood there in the doorway, my purse still on my shoulder, my fingers still curled around my car keys. I noticed ridiculous details. The pot of coffee was still warm. The oven clock read 3:17. The tiramisu dish I'd washed that morning was stacked neatly on the drying rack like the universe had a dark sense of humor. She tried to slide off the table. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Shaw. I didn't. Don't move," I said. She froze. Daniel froze. I stepped closer, not because I wanted to, but because my body was on autopilot. I looked at my husband of 30 years, this man whose socks I'd matched, whose colds I'd fussed over, whose mother I'd buried, and I saw something new. Not my partner. Not the father of my children. Not my friend. Just a man, caught mid-lie, calculating angles faster than I could blink. "Net," he started, voice low and pleading, trying out the nickname that used to melt me when we were young and stupid. "Listen, don't net me," I said calmly. "Daniel, put on your pants." He blinked. That threw him off more than the fact I'd caught him half naked. He was expecting the hysterics. Men like him always are. While he scrambled for his jeans, I turned to his little hobby on my table. She was trembling, poor thing. Dark hair, brown eyes, big tattoo of a peony curling around her hip. Yesterday those eyes had watched me carefully while I explained about whipping egg whites without letting a drop of yolk slip in. "Is your tiramisu still in the fridge?" I asked her. She swallowed. I think so. "Good. Get dressed, then throw it out." "I've lost my appetite." Her face crumpled, a mix of shame and panic, but she did what I said. People usually do when I stop smiling. While she scrambled for her dress, I went to the counter, picked up my phone, and quietly took 3 photographs. One of Daniel, half dressed, the kitchen in disarray. One wide shot of her scrambling off my table, his shirt in her hand. One of the condoms discarded in the trash can that had been empty when I left that morning. Evidence, darling. That's something you learn after 59 years on this earth. Feelings fade. Paperwork doesn't. "Are you serious right now?" Daniel barked, his old temper finally breaking through his fake remorse. "You can't just, oh, but I can," I said, snapping the last photo. "And I am. You can both go now." She inhaled sharply. "Mrs. Shaw, I am so sorry. I didn't mean." "You meant it enough to get naked on another woman's table," I said, still too calm. "You meant it enough to text my husband at 2 in the morning. You meant it enough to show up at my house today when you knew I wouldn't be here. That's a lot of meaning for an accident." She started crying. Daniel shot me a furious look like I had made her cry, then slid automatically into defense mode. "Nat, you're not being fair. We need to talk about this, okay? This has been complicated. You've been distant. Things with your daughter," I laughed. It surprised all 3 of us. "Oh, that's rich," I said. "You're seriously about to blame my fight with our daughter for the fact your midlife crisis is currently putting her legs into your old running shoes?" Her cheeks flamed. That one landed. I turned to the girl. "What's your name again?" She sniffled. "Jade." Of course it was. "Get your things, Jade," I said. "You have 3 minutes to be out of my house. After that, I call the police and tell them a stranger broke in while I was away. And I send your little tiramisu text to your mother." Her eyes flew wide. You wouldn't, sweetheart," I said softly. "Today is the day you learn what a woman like me will do when she's done being polite." She bolted. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't throw any plates. I just walked upstairs, my heart pounding like it was trying to punch through my ribs, and sat on the edge of our bed. The same bed I'd made that morning, smoothing his side as if that somehow kept us together. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and close, her quick footsteps, his heavy ones behind her, a car engine, silence. Only then did my hands start shaking. There's a particular humiliation that comes with being betrayed at my age. When you're 25 and you catch a man cheating, you can tell yourself, fine, I'll start over. I'll find someone better. You cry with your girlfriends into cheap wine and move apartments and change your hair. At 59, you don't just lose a man. You lose the story you've been telling yourself about your life. For 30 years, I told myself I was happy. I had proof, didn't I? Birthday dinners, Christmas mornings, the time he drove 6 hours in a snowstorm because I broke my wrist shoveling. The insurance paperwork we filled out side by side at the kitchen table. The nights he brought me tea when I worked my second job. But suddenly all of that rolled back like a film in my head, and now there were bloopers I hadn't noticed before. Canceled dates, sudden business trips, the way he'd flinch when I walked into the room with his phone unlocked. For 30 years, I thought I'd been building a home. Apparently, I'd been decorating a stage. I laid back on the bed slowly, staring at the ceiling fan. It spun lazily, completely indifferent to the fact my marriage had just exploded. I waited for tears. None came. What came instead was the memory of this morning, standing in my daughter's doorway while she crossed her arms and looked at me like I was the disappointment. It had started with something stupid. It always does. Mom, I told you, we can't watch the kids this weekend, she'd said, hair in a messy bun, leggings stained with God knows what toddler snacks. We've got plans. Plans that don't involve your children? I'd raised an eyebrow. That's new. She'd rolled her eyes. It's one concert. I haven't been out in months. Why can't you just support me for once? Support her. The same girl whose braces I'd worked night shifts to afford, whose college dorm I'd decorated by hand lacing a quilt at the kitchen table while Daniel snored in front of the TV. We stuck daggers into each other with words we didn't fully mean but couldn't pull back. You only call when you need something. Well, at least I call. Unlike Dad, you think I didn't see the way you sided with him after the Thanksgiving blow-up. At least he doesn't make everything about him being a saint. When I finally grabbed my purse and walked out, my hands were already shaking from that fight. I remember sitting in my car in her driveway, staring at the steering wheel and thinking, I spent decades holding everyone together. Why does everyone act like I'm the glue and the problem? By the time I drove back to my house, I was wrung out, empty. So when I heard Daniel's heavy breathing in the kitchen, my first instinct had been concern. Funny, isn't it? Even after a fight with my child, after being taken for granted for years, I still rushed toward that sound to save him. Instead, I saved myself. The quiet after betrayal is loud. You hear things you never noticed before. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, your own pulse in your ears. Eventually, I got up from the bed. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look like a woman whose life had just split in two. I looked exactly like I had that morning brown hair with too much gray at the temples, soft lines around my mouth, the faint scar on my chin from falling off my cousin's bike when I was 9. Same woman, different world. You're okay, I told my reflection. You're not broken. You're just done. Downstairs, my phone buzzed. Daniel, we need to talk. Of course we did. I walked down, each step measured. The front door opened before I reached the bottom. He'd been pacing on the porch like some tragic hero. He started in the second he saw me. Nut, listen, I'm going to make tea, I said. If I'm going to listen to you lie, I'd rather do it caffeinated. That shut him up for a good 10 seconds. We sat at the kitchen table, now covered with a dish towel like a bandage over a wound. I wrapped my hands around my mug and watched him. He did what men like him are trained by the universe to do. Deny, minimize, reframe. It was a mistake. It's not what you think. You've been so distant since your mom died. I just needed to feel wanted again. By my friend's daughter? I asked. That's some choice of destination. He flinched. You know how Lisa has been pushing her to network, he said, quoting with his fingers. Jade came by to talk about creaming mascarpone, I supplied. Yes, clearly very technical. He glared. Do you have to be sarcastic right now? Yes, I said. I do. It's either sarcasm or prison time, and I haven't ruled out either. His jaw clenched. Can we be adults for a second? 30 years net? 30. You're going to throw that away over one mistake? I took a slow sip of tea, feeling the burn on my tongue. One mistake? I murmured. You sure you want to go with that number? His eyes flickered. Just a second. But I saw it. The nervous flicker of a man who knows the math doesn't work in his favor. You should stop talking now, I said gently, before you say something else you'll regret. Why are you so calm? He burst out. Most women would be most women, I interrupted, have been trained to perform grief for the comfort of others. I'm saving my energy. What does that mean? I tilted my head. It means I'm listening, and I'm noticing what you don't say as much as what you do. He shoved a hand through his hair. Look, it wasn't serious, okay? She made me feel young, and I made you feel what? I asked. Old? Bored? Responsible? He opened his mouth, then closed it. There it was, the crack. Daniel, I said, using the voice I'd used when our son tried to lie about driving the car without permission. How long has this been going on? He hesitated. A few weeks, he lied. Try again. A couple months. Do you want me to go get your phone? I asked. Or are you going to tell the truth without an audience? He stared at me for a long time, like he was trying to find the woman he used to know somewhere behind my eyes. The one who would cook his favorite stew after a fight, who would fold his shirts while humming Motown. That woman was gone. About a year, he finally muttered. On and off. I nodded once. Thank you. Thank you? He repeated, confused. Yes, I said. Honesty looks good on you. Shame it had to borrow a suit from guilt to show up. He sagged in his chair. What do you want me to say, Nat? Do you want me to beg? Do you want me to cry? I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. I love you. I don't want to lose our family over this. Those words hit a raw spot. Our family. The kids, the grandkids, Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, birthdays, anniversaries. Daniel, I said quietly, you already did lose it. You just didn't notice because I'm very good at silence. He looked genuinely scared for the first time. What are you going to do? He asked. There it was. 2 hours earlier, I wouldn't have had an answer. 2 hours earlier, I still believed my life was something that happened to me. Now, staring at the man who'd taken my loyalty and turned it into cover, I felt something shift inside me. A click, like a safe unlocking. I don't know yet, I said, but whatever I do, it will be legal. It will be smart, and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. That night, I slept on the guest room bed, not because I was heartbroken but because I needed the space to think. The walls were lined with old photos, the kids as toddlers, Daniel coaching Little League, my mother at Thanksgiving, flower on her hands. My life, pinned in frames, proof that things had been real even if they'd ended in lies. I stared at the ceiling until the darkness turned gray and the birds started screaming at each other outside my window like they were reading my mind. At a m, I got up, made coffee, and pulled the fireproof box out of the hall closet. Here's the thing about being just a housewife who also worked 2 jobs. People underestimate you. They think because you cry at sad movies and remember everyone's birthdays, you're not paying attention to the numbers. They forget someone's been paying those bills. Someone's been signing those checks. That someone was me. I sat at the dining table, yes, the other table, the one he hadn't desecrated, and opened folders. Tax returns, bank statements, retirement accounts, his construction business LLC papers, which I'd helped file 15 years ago when he wanted to be his own boss. I flipped through them like I was reading a manual on how to dismantle a machine I'd built. That's when I found the first surprise. It was an innocuous thing, a hotel loyalty statement tucked between 2 old car insurance bills. I almost tossed it aside. But my name is Natalie, and I may be old-fashioned, but I'm not careless. I unfolded it. 7 stays over the past 12 months. Downtown hotels. Weekends I remembered him being on a job upstate or at a conference. I checked the dates. One of them was the same weekend I'd taken our granddaughter to the zoo and texted him a photo of her feeding the goats. He'd replied, "So cute. Tell her grandpa loves her." Apparently, he'd typed that from a king-size bed at the Marriott. My hands stopped shaking. Just like that. Anger is hot. Betrayal is ice cold. Cold is useful. Cold thanks. I got a notebook from the drawer and wrote on the first page. Step 1. Know everything. I started a list. Hotel dates, amounts, the new credit card I didn't remember opening, the extra phone line on our family plan, the business expenses from restaurants that looked suspiciously romantic. Every time I found a piece of evidence, I wrote it down. Facts, not feelings. By I had a timeline. By noon, I had his pattern. By PM, I had my lawyer's office on the phone. Mrs. Shaw, it's been a while. Elaine sounded exactly the same, brisk, efficient, faintly amused. She'd handled the closing when we refinanced the house 10 years ago. I remembered liking her. Not because she was warm, she wasn't, but because she read every line of every document while the mail broker made jokes about how no one really reads all that stuff. I need a consultation, I said. Marriage, assets, infidelity. She didn't miss a beat. Can you come in today at 4? I'll be there. Daniel texted twice while I was in the shower. Can we talk tonight? And I love you. Please don't make any rash decisions. That made me smile. The man who'd been lying for a year thought I was impulsive. I'm going out, I told him when he wandered blearily into the kitchen, hair mussed, breath smelling faintly of guilt and mouthwash. Where? He asked. I'll let you know when it affects you, I said, picking up my purse. In the meantime, don't touch my files. He paled. You went through the finances? Oh, sweetheart. I patted his cheek. You went through our marriage. I'm just doing inventory. Elaine's office smelled like coffee and copy paper. She wore her gray hair in a sharp bob and her glasses on a chain. I sat opposite her desk, set my notebook down, and slid my phone across with the photos and screenshots already pulled up. First of all, I said, I don't want to go to jail. So whatever we do, no burning houses down or hitting anyone with my car, no matter how tempting the headlines would be. Her lips twitched. That's a promising start. Second, I continued, I don't want to be vindictive. She raised an eyebrow. I want to be accurate, I clarified. I put 30 years into this marriage. I co-signed loans. I work shifts. I raised children. I cleaned houses and offices so he could build his business. I want what is legally and morally mine. No more. No less. But I also want him to feel what he did. Not just sign some papers and marry the next tiramisu. Understood, Elaine said, and there was a new respect in her eyes. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about walking in on them, about the hotel receipts, about the second phone, about the way Daniel always insisted the business accounts were too complicated for me to worry my pretty little head about, even as I signed joint tax returns that made my stomach flutter. I told her about our daughter and our son, about the grandkids, about the house and the cabin upstate that we rented out on Airbnb, about the construction company officially in his name but funded by a home equity loan I'd agreed to. When I was done, Elaine was quiet for a long time, tapping her pen against the desk. Legally, she said finally, you're in a better position than you think. Yes, I leaned forward. He's the primary earner on paper. But you have years of shared assets, and you've got evidence of infidelity. New York isn't technically about fault for division of assets, but judges are human. It can matter. The business is marital property. The house is marital property. The cabin is marital property. Your retirement accounts, wait, his too. I interrupted. She nodded, assuming contributions were made during the marriage. Yes, now. She folded her hands. The key question is, do you want to stay married and scare him enough to change, or do you want out? I thought of the kitchen table, the hotel dates, the way he'd looked at me like I was the problem for not falling apart on his schedule. I want out, I said. I also want the house, half the business, my pension, and something else. What's the something else? She asked. I want to choose how and when he finds out his life is over as he knows it, I said. I want that part, Elaine. The timing, the reveal. Her eyes lit up with a glint I recognized, another woman who'd been underestimated too many times. That, she said, we can do. We spent an hour designing the bones of my revenge. Not the screaming kind. Not the throw his clothes on the lawn kind. No, mine was going to have teeth and paperwork. Step 1. Secure the money that was solely in my name. Step 2. Open a new bank account at a different bank. Transfer my paychecks there. Step 3. Quietly gather copies of every document, deeds, titles, tax returns, business contracts. Think like an auditor, Elaine said, or a detective. Step 4. Do not confront him with what I knew. Not yet. You'll get better terms if he underestimates you. She smiled. And something tells me you can play the loyal wife a little longer. I thought about it. I'd been playing a version of that role my whole life. This time, I'd be playing it for me. Can we freeze assets? I asked. So he can't sell the cabin or drain accounts. In time, she said. First, We prepare. Then we file for divorce and request temporary orders to protect the estate. But there's something else you should consider. What? Support, she said. Spousal. You're still working, but he out-earns you on paper. After 30 years, we can make a strong case for long-term maintenance. Oh, I don't want his monthly pity, I said. I want a clean break. It's not pity, she said. It's compensation. But we can negotiate a buyout instead a larger lump sum now in exchange for waiving future support. You'll have leverage because of the cheating and because you know where the money is buried. And because he doesn't know how quiet I can be, I added. She smiled again. Exactly. I left her office with a folder full of notes and a calmness deep in my bones I hadn't felt in years. I had a plan. It wasn't finished. It wasn't perfect. But it was mine. You'd think the next thing I did was march over to Jade's apartment and claw her eyes out. But I'm not 25. I'm 59. I've seen enough to know that when a man cheats with a woman half your age, she's not the main problem. She's a symptom. Still, symptoms need treatment. That evening, while Daniel sat in the living room pretending to watch TV but really watching me, I sat at the kitchen table and drafted a text. Me. Hi Jade. It's Natalie. 3 dots appeared almost instantly, then disappeared, then appeared again. Jade, Mrs. Shaw, I am so sorry. I know you must hate me. I cut that off. Me. We're going to talk. Tomorrow? Caf Luna on 5th. Don't be late. A long pause. Then, Jade. Okay. Another ping. A second later. Jade. Will Lisa be there? Her mother. My girlfriend. The one I'd almost blamed Daniel for cheating with, because it made more sense than him targeting her barely grown daughter. I stared at the question for a long moment. Me. No, just you and me. I set my phone down. From the other room, Daniel called. Who are you texting? Someone with better manners than you, I said. He nervous laughed. Very funny. I smiled to myself. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, made coffee, put on jeans and a navy blouse that made my eyes look brighter than I felt. As I brushed my hair, I caught my reflection again. You're not going there as the wife, I told the mirror. You're going there as the woman you are when no one's taking advantage of you. It had been a while since I'd seen her. Caf Luna is one of those places with exposed brick and plants hanging from the ceiling like the decor is trying to hard. When I walked in, Jade was already there, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug like she was afraid it might take off without her. She looked smaller in daylight, dark circles under her eyes. No makeup, just a kid really. A kid who'd done something awful, but still a kid. Mrs. Shaw, she started standing, but I waved her down and sat. Do you prefer Jade or something else? I asked. Jade is fine, she whispered. Okay, Jade. I folded my hands. Let's talk woman to woman, not wife to mistress, not mother's friend to daughter. Just 2 women who made choices. Her eyes filled with tears immediately. I know what I did was wrong. I don't have any excuse. Your husband Daniel, he told me you were basically separated, that you were more like roommates now. I was stupid. I believed him. I thought that you were special. I finished for her. Different. The one who understood him. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I know that script, I said. He used it on me once too, when we were young, when he complained about his first serious girlfriend not supporting his dreams. I tilted my head. How old are you? 30, she said. I know, it's disgusting. He's old enough to be my, don't say it, I interrupted. You're not my daughter. You're not my responsibility. But you are responsible for the choice you made in my kitchen. She swallowed hard. I'll never forgive myself for that. I'm not here for your self-forgiveness, I said. I'm here for information. She blinked. Information? Yes. I already know what he told you about me. I want to know what he told you about him, about money, about plans, about a future. She hesitated. I don't want to get him in trouble. Oh, he's already in trouble, I said calmly. You're either helping him or helping yourself. And let me give you a little piece of wisdom for free, Jade. Men like Daniel, when their lives blow up, they don't stand in the fire for you. They will happily hand you over as kindling and walk away. She stared at me, the truth of that landing somewhere deep. He said, she started. He said he was going to leave, not right away, that he had to untangle the money first, that he'd been carrying you for years and he was tired, that you'd be fine because the house was technically yours and he didn't want anything. He just wanted out, with me. I almost laughed. He said he didn't want anything? She nodded miserably. He said you'd probably try to take everything, But he didn't care. He'd start over. As long as we had each other. I wondered which hotel speech that had been. The Marriott? The Hilton? The boutique place with the rooftop bar? Did he ever ask you to sign anything? I asked. Papers, contracts, loans. Her brows knitted. No, why? Because that would have meant he actually had a plan, I said. He doesn't. He just has urges and a talent for self-pity. She sniffed. You're being really calm about this. Yes, I said. I am. Aren't you angry? I was, I said. Then I realized anger gives him too much power. Being angry means he still gets to occupy my mind. I prefer strategy. Her shoulders slumped. So, what happens now? Are you going to tell my mom? Eventually, I said. But not yet. She looked startled. Why not? Because unlike some people, I said, I don't move until it benefits me. We sat in silence for a moment, the hiss of the espresso machine filling the space between us. Jade, I said finally, I'm filing for divorce. That's not your fault. That's his. He made vows to me. You didn't. Still, I let the word hang in the air. You hurt me, personally, in my home. On a table I scraped glue off for our kids' school projects. She winced. I didn't think about it like that. Of course you didn't, I said. You're 30. You think tables just exist, fully formed, for your use. But here's the thing. I don't want to destroy your life. I want to fix mine. So I'm going to ask you for something. Anything, she whispered. I want every text, every email, every photo, every hotel reservation confirmation he ever sent you, I said. I want the screenshots. I want the receipts. I want the truth in writing. Her mouth fell open. You want me to turn him in? I want you to be honest, I said. For once. What if he finds out? She whispered. He will, I said. But by then, you'll already be out of it. Because here's what you're going to do. You're going to send him one last message after you send me everything. You're going to tell him you can't see him anymore because you realized you were hurting a woman who'd done nothing to you. And you're going to block his number. Her eyes filled again. He'll hate me. Oh, sweetheart, I said softly. No, he won't. He'll pout. He'll guilt trip. He'll tell you you're ruining his life. And then he'll find a new girl who likes Italian desserts. Men like him always do. Let him. That sounds harsh, she said. It sounds accurate, I replied. She studied me for a long moment. What are you going to do with the messages? She asked. I smiled. I'm going to build myself a new life with them. By the time I walked out of Caf Luna, the sky had turned bright and cold. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Jade. Sending everything now. I'm sorry. My screen filled with messages, screenshots, photos, hotel confirmations, him promising to leave, him complaining about me, him sending selfies from my bathroom mirror like a teenager. Each one hurt a little less than the one before, because each one was also a brick. And brick by brick, I was building something. When I got home, Daniel was at the kitchen table, of all places, looking at a stack of invoices like he thought if he shuffled them enough they'd turn into a solution. How was your morning? He asked, trying to sound casual. Productive, I said. Very productive. He watched me carefully. Net. We need to decide what we're doing. The kids will be told, I said. By me, with the truth. His jaw tightened. You're going to turn them against me? I don't have to, I said. You've been rehearsing for that role all year. He slammed his hand on the table. Damn it, Net, can you stop with the one-liners and just talk to me? I looked at him, really looked. At the man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with, the man who'd chosen adrenaline over honesty, convenience over courage. All right, I said. Let's talk. I pulled out the chair opposite him and sat, calmly placing my phone in the middle of the table. Here's what's going to happen, I said. His eyes narrowed. You're not the only one who gets to decide, actually, I cut in, my voice smooth as glass. I am. Because for 30 years, I let you steer this ship while I patch the holes. Today, I found out you've been drilling holes in the bottom on purpose. So guess what, Captain? You're relieved of duty. He opened his mouth, closed it. I tapped the phone. I've met with a lawyer. I've reviewed our finances. I know about the hotels, the second phone, the business dinners you wrote off. I have screenshots, including from your little baking prodigy. His face went white. What did you do? He whispered. I had coffee, I said, with the girl you thought would help you start over. Turns out, she's more scared of becoming me than she is in love with you. So she cooperated. You manipulated her, he said weakly. Welcome to my world, I said. He put his head in his hands. What do you want, Net? There it was again. What do you want? It sounded so simple, but no one had asked me that in years without expecting the answer to revolve around their needs. I took a breath. I want my house, I said. I want my share of the business. I want my retirement untouched. I want the cabin. I want you out. And I want a divorce. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You're really going to throw away 30 years? He whispered. I leaned in. No, Daniel, I said quietly. You threw away 30 years. I'm just going to cash in what's left. He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. You can't do this without me agreeing. Yes, I said gently. I can, and I will. You're welcome to get your own lawyer. But understand something, I tapped the phone again. I have the receipts, literally. He stared at the little device like it was a bomb. Think about it, I said, standing. You can leave this house with dignity and a fair share, or you can drag this into court. Let our kids hear everything, and watch a judge divide your life with less sympathy than I'm currently offering. Your call. I walked toward the doorway. Where are you going? He called after me, voice hoarse. I paused, hand on the frame. To meet a real estate agent, I lied smoothly. We're going to need a valuation on the house. And then later, I'm going to buy myself a new kitchen table. Net, he said, voice breaking. I looked back at him. For what it's worth, I said, I would have forgiven a midlife crisis. I might even have forgiven one stupid, drunken mistake. But a year of lying, making me the fool in my own home? I shook my head. You didn't just cheat on me, Daniel, I said. You underestimated me. That's the part you're really going to regret. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in 3 decades, the sound of it didn't make me flinch. Outside, the air felt different, lighter. Somewhere inside my chest, beneath the bruises, something new was stretching its arms, waking up. It wasn't spite, it wasn't hate, it was me, and I was just getting started. I always thought freedom would feel loud. Fireworks, champagne, one of those country songs blasting from a pickup about a woman throwing a cheater's clothes on the lawn. I thought the day I finally walked away from a man who hurt me, the sky would crack open and release a marching band. Turns out, freedom mostly sounds like paperwork and the quiet slide of a pen across a dotted line. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The morning after I told Daniel I wanted a divorce, he slept on the couch. Not because I told him to, because he didn't know where else to go. I watched him from the hallway for a moment, this big, broad-shouldered man curled up like he was trying to fold himself small. For a second, I felt that old tug of compassion. 30 years of reflex doesn't disappear overnight. Then my eyes drifted to the kitchen, to the table, to the dish towel that still covered it like a crime scene tarp. The sympathy evaporated. I made coffee, loud enough for him to hear but not enough to be an invitation. He shuffled in after a while, hair sticking up, eyes bloodshot. I didn't sleep, he muttered, like that was supposed to impress me. Congratulations, I said. You've just experienced night one of every woman who's ever been cheated on. He flinched. Can we not do this at 7 in the morning? Fine, I said. We'll do logistics instead. He looked wary. Logistics? Yes. I opened the folder Elaine had given me and laid out 3 papers on the counter between us. Here's what I've proposed through my lawyer. You'll be getting a formal copy soon, but I like to look a man in the eye when I hand him his fate. His eyes skimmed the pages. House to me, cabin to me, 50% of the business, my pension untouched. A reasonable, not trying to destroy you split of his retirement accounts. No alimony on the condition he cooperates and signs quickly. He stared at it all, went pale, flushed red, and then pale again. It was like watching a sunset in reverse. This is insane, he stammered. You can't just. I can, I said, and did. And Elaine has already explained to me how the court will likely see it, given the length of the marriage and your documented infidelity. Documented? He repeated, voice cracking. I tapped my phone on the counter. Receipts, screenshots, hotel loyalty statements. You left quite a trail for a man who still prints out directions from MapQuest just in case. You're really going to drag me through court? He asked. In front of our kids? I tilted my head. Are you really going to make me? We stared at each other. 2 people who used to fall asleep holding hands, now circling each other like boxers in the later rounds. I need time to think, he muttered. You've had a year, I said. You thought in hotel rooms and on my kitchen table. Now it's my turn. He slammed the papers on the counter and stormed out the back door. The screen banged against the frame the way it had 1,000 times before. The difference was this time, I didn't rush after him. Telling the kids was next. If you've never had to sit your grown children down and say, your father has been sleeping with someone the same age as your cousin, let me tell you, it's a moment that rearranges your soul. We decided to meet at my daughter's house. Neutral ground, or at least neutral-ish. The last time I'd been there, we'd fought over babysitting and respect and who owed who what. That felt like a lifetime ago. She opened the door hesitantly. Mom. I forced a smile. I promise, I didn't come to criticize your snack inventory. She cracked a small smile, stepped aside. My son was already there, sitting on the couch, bouncing his leg the way he did when he was nervous. What's going on? He asked. Dad said we needed a family talk, which is never good news unless there's a surprise vacation involved, and judging by your faces, I'm guessing it's not Disney. I sat in the armchair. Daniel took the other end of the couch from our son, leaving a gulf of cushion between them. He looked older somehow, deflated. I'll get to the point, I said. Your father and I are getting a divorce. My daughter's eyes filled immediately. What? Why? You've been together forever. My son's jaw tightened. What happened? I looked at Daniel. Do you want to tell them, or should I? He stared at the carpet. The silence stretched so long I could hear the kids breathing. Finally, he murmured, It's my fault. That's a start, I said. More details? He swallowed. I had an affair. The word hung in the air like the smell after a match has been blown out. With who? My son demanded. Doesn't matter, Daniel muttered. It does, my daughter said sharply, surprising me. If we're going to sit here while our entire childhood gets rearranged, I want the unedited version. I watched them both. My babies. The boy who used to fall asleep on Daniel's chest during football games. The girl who'd once declared she was going to marry a man exactly like Daddy. Funny how life works out. It was with Jade, I said. Lisa's daughter. My daughter's mouth fell open. You mean Lisa? Like, Aunt Lisa? She wasn't actually their aunt, but that's what we'd called my closest friends when they were little. Yes, I said. That Lisa. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh, my God. My son shot to his feet. Dad, are you kidding me? She's younger than me. It's complicated, Daniel muttered. No, I said. It's really not. My daughter started to cry. Ugly, hiccuping sobs. My son paced like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair. Is this why you were so weird on Thanksgiving? He yelled at Daniel. When Mom made that joke about you liking younger women and you practically choked on your mashed potatoes. I didn't want Daniel started. You didn't want to get caught, I cut in. But you did. My daughter wiped her face angrily. How long? She asked. How long has this been going on behind our backs? Daniel looked at me, pleading silently for mercy. I gave him none. About a year, I said. My son turned on me unexpectedly. And you knew, the whole time? Don't you dare, I said, my voice sharp enough to slice. Do not put me in the same sentence as your father when it comes to deception. I found out last week. How? My daughter whispered. I took a breath. I walked in on them. Here's a fun image you can share with your therapist someday. Your father and Jade on our kitchen table. My son swore so loudly the baby monitor on the coffee table crackled. For the record, I added, I have already scheduled therapy for myself. Highly recommend it. My daughter stared at Daniel. How could you? She cried. To Mom? To us? To Lisa? To God. Jade grew up in our house. You watched her at the pool. You bought her birthday gifts. That's disgusting. He winced. I know. I'm not proud of it. Proud isn't the word you need to worry about, I said. The kids turned to me. What happens now? My son asked, voice suddenly small. We separate, I said. We file for divorce. We divide everything. And we figure out what family looks like after the dust settles. You mean we have to choose? My daughter asked, panic rising in her voice. Between you two? No. I said quickly. You don't. This isn't a custody battle. You're adults. You're allowed to have a relationship with both of us if that's what you want. But I won't lie for him. And I won't pretend this didn't happen. My son sank onto the couch, rubbing his face. I can't even look at you right now, he said to Daniel. Daniel's shoulders sagged. My daughter sniffled. Mom, she said, voice trembling. I'm so sorry I yelled at you the other day. About the kids. I shouldn't have, it's okay, I said gently. No, it's not, she said. You were trying to help and I thought you were just trying to control me. She looked at her father with new hard eyes. Turns out, I've been mad at the wrong parent. I wanted to tell her she was allowed to be mad at both of us, that I'd made mistakes to different ones, quieter ones. The mistake of shrinking myself to keep the peace. The mistake of ignoring my own loneliness because everyone else's needs were louder. But I kept that to myself, for another day. For what it's worth, I said softly, I'm going to be okay. My son looked at me skeptically. How do you know? Because I've survived everything else, I said simply. And I still know how to make a mean tiramisu, which I am now reserving solely for myself. It got a weak laugh out of them. I'd take it. Are you angry? My daughter asked. At us? For not noticing? For maybe taking your side for granted? I thought of all the nights I'd stayed up, waiting for them to call, ready to solve whatever problem they had. The times I'd downplayed my own exhaustion because I didn't want to be a burden. I admitted, but not now. Now I'm awake. And part of waking up is realizing everyone in this family has been treating me like a piece of furniture that magically stays in place no matter who leans on it. They both looked horrified. I'm not saying that to hurt you, I added. I'm saying it because things are going to change, for all of us. And in that change, I'm going to ask for something I should have asked for a long time ago. What? My son asked. Respect, I said. Not the flowers on Mother's Day kind. The kind where you don't assume I'll fix everything while you all live your lives like I'm a safety net that never tears. My daughter flinched visibly. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I can do that. Me too, my son said quietly. Good, I thought, because you're going to see a very different version of me soon. Dealing with Lisa now that required a very specific kind of courage. She'd been my friend for 20 years. We'd traded recipes, cried on each other's shoulders, taken the kids to soccer practice, drank wine in our sweatpants while complaining about our husbands snoring and our own thighs. She was the one who'd first brought Jade over as a shy 12-year-old with braces and a book always in her hand. If I was going to deliver this particular blow, I was going to do it in person. No texts, no half-truths. I drove to her house on a Tuesday afternoon. The trees in her yard were starting to turn, little bursts of gold among the green. Beautiful season for people falling apart. She opened the door with a smile. Net, what a surprise. Come in, I just made coffee. I stepped inside, suddenly hyper-aware of how many times I'd walked through this doorway without knowing my life was being rewritten in another part of town. We sat at her kitchen island. Her kitchen was neater than mine, almost sterile. I'd helped her pick out the backsplash tile. Now it made my eye twitch. What's up? She asked. You look different. Do I? I asked. I caught my husband having sex with your daughter on my kitchen table last week. That'll do it. The mug stopped halfway to her lips. What? She whispered. Daniel, I said calmly. And Jade, affair, a year, kitchen table. I can draw you a diagram if you'd like. Her face went white, then red, then white again. That's not funny. It's not a joke. She set the mug down with a clatter. Jade would never. You must have misunderstood, Lisa, I said. I have pictures. I have screenshots. I have hotel reservations with their names on them. I'm not here for an argument. I'm here because you deserve to hear this from someone who doesn't benefit from lying to you. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh, my baby. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. For her, not for him. She started to cry raw, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I stayed very still. Let her feel it. Let her realize this wasn't a bad dream we could both wake up from and laugh about later. How long? She finally rasped. About a year, I said. And you're sure? She asked, sounding desperate, like maybe I'd say, just kidding, it was all a misunderstanding. They were rehearsing for a play, I'm sure, I said softly. I walked in on them. She confided in me afterwards. She's cut it off now. Lisa's eyes flashed. Confided in you? She snapped. You talked to her before you talked to me? Here we go. I thought. I found out on Friday, I said. I confronted Daniel. On Monday, I met with a lawyer. Yesterday, I met with Jade because I needed information for my divorce. Today, I came to you. I'm moving as fast as I can while holding my entire life together with one hand. Her anger faltered. Divorce? Yes, I said. I'm done. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're really going to just throw 30 years away? The déjà vu almost made me laugh. No, Lisa, I said calmly. I'm going to take my half of those 30 years and leave him with the mess he made. That's not throwing away. That's called inventory. She sank onto the stool. I can't believe she would do this to me, she whispered, tears running down her face. After everything I've done for her. A sharp response rose in my throat. After everything you've done for her, but I swallowed it, one bomb at a time. She's 30, I said instead. Old enough to know better, young enough to be stupid, and unlike your husband, mine, she didn't take vows to me. He did. He's the one I'm focusing my aim on. You're not mad at her? Lisa demanded. Oh, I'm furious, I said, at both of them, but rage is a resource. I'm not going to waste it on the younger, more replaceable half of the equation. She stared at me, confused. I don't understand how you're so calm. I'm not calm, I said. I'm focused. There's a difference. Her face twisted. I should go over there right now and no, I cut in. You should not. She blinked. Excuse me? Don't go over there screaming, I said. Don't throw his clothes on the lawn. Don't start a scene in front of the neighbors. You know why? Because men like Daniel, they love that. It feeds their little narrative about crazy EXes and hysterical women. It makes them the victim. Don't give him that. She frowned. Then what am I supposed to do? Sit here and cry into my coffee? For today? I said gently. Yes. And then tomorrow, you're going to do what I did. Look at your finances. Figure out what's yours. Decide what kind of life you want when this storm is over. She swallowed. Are you saying I should leave my husband too? I'm saying, I replied, that once a man has crossed this line and kept it secret for a year, he's told you exactly how much your trust is worth to him. The rest is your decision. She nodded slowly. Then her eyes narrowed. Did you know? She asked. Before you told me? Did you suspect something with her and just let our girls, my girl, there it was, the tiny twist of blame trying to turn my way. No, I said firmly. I thought he was cheating with you, not your daughter. Her mouth dropped open. With me? Yes, I said. The endless texting, the jokes, the late nights working on the fundraiser in your garage. That wasn't we, oh my God, she whispered, realization dawning. He used that. Yes, I said. He used you as cover, just like he used me. That's what this kind of man does. She put her face in her hands. I'm such an idiot. You're not, I said. You're just like me. You trusted the wrong person too much and yourself too little. She looked up at me through red eyes. What are you going to do? I mean, really do? I smiled, a small, sharp thing. I'm going to make sure I never have to depend on his lousy judgment again. And I'm going to teach him, in the only language he truly understands, money and consequences, that when you break something valuable, you pay for it. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal appointments, appraisals, and a surprising number of casseroles. Apparently, when word gets out that your husband slept with your friend's daughter, people suddenly remember your address and their lasagna recipes. I accepted the food, not because I couldn't cook, but because I was curious. Some women looked at me with pity. I'm so sorry, honey. I don't know what I'd do if mine ever did that. Others had a flicker in their eyes I recognized, something between fury and relief. I always thought there was something off about him. One neighbor whispered conspiratorially. Too charming. Men who talk that smooth are hiding something. I didn't correct her. People rewrite history when scandal hits. It makes them feel safer, like they could have seen it coming, like they'd never be stupid enough to miss the signs. Let them. I didn't owe the neighborhood my emotional truth. What I owed myself was stability. So I followed Elaine's checklist like it was a sacred text. New bank account? Check. Copies of every important document in a fireproof envelope at her office? Check. An appraisal on the house and cabin from someone who didn't play golf with Daniel? Check. A temporary court order preventing either of us from selling or draining any joint assets? Double check. Daniel sputtered, of course. You're treating me like a criminal, he complained, waving the court order. You treated our marriage like a recreational sport, I replied. This is the warm-up. He sulked. He alternated between begging, blaming, and playing the victim. He left post-it notes on the fridge. Remember when we first moved in? And I still love you. He cooked dinner once badly, like burnt chicken was going to erase a year of lies. I didn't fall for any of it. The thing no one tells you about getting older is that your tolerance for nonsense shrinks faster than your jeans in the dryer. I also started therapy. not couples therapy. That ship had not only sailed, it had hit an iceberg and was currently at the bottom of the ocean surrounded by fish with better integrity than my husband. This was just for me. My therapist was a woman in her 70s named Dr. Morales who wore brightly colored scarves and did not nod along pretending everything I did was reasonable. "So you're getting divorced," she said in our first session, voice dry as desert air. "How is that sitting in your body?" "In my body?" I repeated. "Mostly in my jaw and my lower back." "Ah," she said, clenching and carrying. Classic caretaker posture. "I'm not a caretaker," I protested automatically. "I just take care of people." She smiled. "We'll circle back to that lie later." I liked her immediately. With her, I let myself say the things I hadn't said out loud. That part of me felt humiliated. That another part, smaller but growing, felt something dangerously close to relief. "Relief?" she asked, tilting her head. "Yes," I said. "Relief that I don't have to keep pretending I'm okay with being last on my own list. Relief that I don't have to keep smoothing his rough edges for everyone else. Relief that I can stop pretending our marriage is this golden standard when in reality, I've been emotionally single for years." She nodded. "Sounds less like you're losing a husband and more like you're finally catching up with the truth. That makes it sound so clinical," I grumbled. "It is clinical," she said. "Feelings are messy, but the structures around them are often predictable. You've been the emotional bookkeeper of your family. Now you're doing an audit. And guess what? The numbers don't add up." "I don't want to be bitter," I confessed. "I've seen women in their 60s who just radiate resentment. I don't want to smell like that." She chuckled. "Bitterness is grief that got stuck. You'll feel bitter if you don't let yourself grieve what you thought you had." "What if what I thought I had was never as good as I believed?" I asked. "Then you're grieving the version of yourself who accepted less," she said. "And maybe, just maybe, you're making room for a version who won't." I left her office that day feeling like someone had rearranged the furniture in my brain. Things looked the same, but the path through them was different. While my divorce gathered momentum, my life slowly, strangely, began to expand. I started going to a Saturday morning yoga class. Not because I suddenly believed down dogs would solve my emotional problems, but because the instructor at the community center was a woman in her 60s with purple hair and a Mind Your Own Chakra t-shirt. The first time I tried to balance on one foot, I nearly toppled into the woman next to me. She caught my arm and laughed. "First time?" she asked. "In this century," I said. She grinned. "I'm Ruth. I tried yoga for the first time when my second husband left me for his bowling partner. Now I can touch my toes and I don't cry when I see his truck at the grocery store." "High bar," I said. "I'm Natalie. My husband left me for tiramisu." She raised an eyebrow. I sighed and gave her the condensed version. "Kitchen table, receipts, divorce, men." She snorted. "God's reminder that evolution isn't a straight line." We became stretch buddies, as she called it. After class, we'd have coffee, and she'd tell me stories about her life, some tragic, some hilarious, all proof that heartbreak wasn't the end of the world, just the end of one very specific, often badly written chapter. "You'll date again," she said one morning, utterly confident. I nearly choked on my latte. "Who said anything about dating?" "Your face when that man held the door for you earlier," she said. "Don't worry. You don't have to admit it out loud, yet." I waved her off, but her words lodged somewhere in the back of my mind like a seed. Meanwhile, the legal machine churned. Mediation day was an experience. We sat in a beige conference room with a bowl of stale peppermint candies in the middle of the table like they were offering us consolation for the death of our marriage. The mediator, a man with kind eyes and a tie that looked like it had seen things, went over the terms Elaine and I had proposed. Daniel's lawyer, who looked like he still lived on instant noodles, objected to nearly everything. "The house is too much," Noodles protested. "My client is willing to move out, but he should get half the equity. He used the house as a motel," I said sweetly. "I think it's fair compensation." The mediator coughed into his hand to hide a smile. Elaine leaned in. "New York courts would likely award my client the residence, given her primary financial contributions to maintaining the home and her lower earning potential at this stage in life. We're offering a very reasonable buyout of his share from the business instead." "You're gutting him," Daniel snapped. "You're taking everything I built." I turned to him. you built? Who managed the books for the first 5 years when you didn't know profit from loss? Who worked nights cleaning offices so we didn't default on the business loan? Who pushed you to get insured properly when you wanted to risk it and work under the table? He opened his mouth, then shut it. I'm not gutting you, I said. I'm just making sure the ledger reflects both our contributions. He glared at me, but I could tell something had shifted. He was finally seeing me not as the background character in his life, but as someone who'd been holding up the scenery this whole time. The mediator cleared his throat. Mr. Shaw, if you take this to court, you risk a judge awarding even more in your wife's favor. Given the evidence of infidelity, your long-standing marriage, and her documented support of your business, this proposal is fair. Fair. Such a simple word, loaded like a gun. In the end, after hours of back and forth, calculator buttons clicking, and some strategic silence on my part, he agreed. I'll sign, he muttered, on one condition. Elaine's eyebrow arched. Which is, we don't tell everyone all the details, he said, eyes flicking to me. The affair, the texts, the hotels, the kitchen table. I don't want that all over town. Newsflash, I said. It already is. But fine, you cooperate fully, sign everything promptly, and I won't submit the screenshots as exhibits. They'll stay in a nice little folder on my cloud drive, where only God and my therapist will ever see them again. The mediator looked relieved. Wonderful. Then we're agreed. As they shuffled papers, something unexpected swelled in my chest. Not joy, not exactly relief, a strange, quiet pride. I'd walked into this process terrified I'd be bulldozed, that he'd talk circles around me, that the system would see me as just the wife. Instead, here I was, holding my ground, watching my soon-to-be ex-husband realize that the woman he'd underestimated for 30 years had teeth, and a lawyer. When I picked up the pen and signed my name, my hand didn't shake. The night the divorce was finalized, I made myself a small feast. Not some dramatic I am woman, hear me broil spread. Just my favorite things, roasted chicken with lemon and garlic, crispy potatoes, a bright salad, and yes, tiramisu. I made it alone in my kitchen. I cleaned the table twice, not because it was dirty, but because I was reclaiming it. My table, my home, my life. I lit a candle, poured myself a glass of red wine, and sat down. To my surprise, I didn't feel particularly sad. I felt spacious, like a room that had finally been cleared of old furniture, ready for something new. After dinner, I took off my ring. I'd thought that moment would shatter me, that the indent on my finger would feel like a wound. Instead, it felt like taking off a pair of shoes that had been pinching my toes for so long I'd forgotten they weren't supposed to hurt. I put the ring in a little velvet box and tucked it in the top drawer of my dresser. Thank you for your service, I told it. You did your job until you didn't. We move on. That night, I slept in the middle of the bed. I woke up once, reaching out automatically to the right side. My hand met cool sheet. For a moment, grief rose like a tide. Then I thought about hotel receipts and kitchen tables and a girl half my age being told the same lies I'd been fed decades ago. The tide receded. I rolled over and sprawled luxuriously, starfish like a teenager. Reclaiming my life wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 small choices. I changed the curtains in the living room. The old ones were heavy and beige, picked by Daniel because they hid dirt well. I bought bright teal ones that made the room look like it had opinions. I signed up for a pottery class at the community college. I'd always wanted to try it, but there was never time. There were always games to attend, clients to accommodate, dinners to make, holidays to orchestrate. The first time my hands sank into wet clay, I almost cried. Feels good, right? The instructor, a woman with ink-stained hands and laugh lines, said. It feels like I've been wearing gloves my whole life, I said. And I just took them off. I made lopsided bowls and indecently shaped vases that made Ruth snort laugh when I showed her. Looks like you're working out more than just creativity there, she'd joke. Hey, I'd reply, at least something in my life is getting properly fired. Slowly, my world shifted from we to I, and not in the lonely way I'd feared. I visited my granddaughter's school play and stayed afterward, not to clean up the whole auditorium, but to sit with other grandmothers and drink cheap coffee from paper cups as we compared notes on aging knees and online dating horror stories. Online dating, that still sounded like science fiction to me. Yes, you will, Ruth insisted again one day after yoga when I rolled my eyes. You're gorgeous. You're smart. You're emotionally literate. You're a catch. I'm also 59 and have very low tolerance for nonsense, I pointed out. That's not exactly hot commodity in the dating pool. Oh honey, she said, for the right kind of man, that's the jackpot. But you don't have to go looking. Life has a funny way of dropping people in your path when you finally stop tripping over the wrong ones, I snorted. Like who? The eps guy? She shrugged. Stranger things have happened. I laughed, shook it off, went home, and continued building this new version of my life brick by brick. Divorced, free, not interested. That's what I told myself. And then I met him. I met him at the DMV. I know, romance's least glamorous setting. Nobody writes love songs about fluorescent lighting and sticky floors. But life is rude like that, it never checks the backdrop before it throws you a plot twist. I was there to change my driver's license, not my address that had stayed the same. Daniel was the one who moved into a sad little apartment near the freeway, complete with beige carpet and a balcony facing the dumpsters. Poetic, if you asked me. No, I was there to change my name. Are you sure? My daughter had asked on the phone the night before. I mean, you've been Mom Shaw my whole life. Doesn't it feel weird to go back to your maiden name? Sweetheart, I said, I'm not going back to anything. I'm going forward to myself. There's a difference. So there I was at the DMV counter, folding my divorce decree and birth certificate like a little paper shield, when the woman behind the desk peered over her glasses. You really want to change it? She asked. No pressure, honey, but it's a big deal. I smiled. I've been carrying a man's last name longer than some people keep houseplants alive. I think I've done my time. She laughed and stamped something with a satisfying thud. Okay, Miss Alvarez, she said, reading from my old birth certificate. You're official again, Miss Natalie Alvarez. Huh. It felt right, like shrugging on a jacket you forgot you loved, surprised it still fits. The next step in the DMV circus was the photo line. I stood there, clutching my little number ticket, when the guy behind me dropped his folder. Papers scattered a snowy explosion across the filthy tile. Damn it, he muttered, bending too fast and smacking his head on the edge of the chair. I bent down automatically, habit of a lifetime. Careful, I said. This place offers many things, but decent medical care isn't one of them. He huffed a surprised laugh, rubbing his forehead. You'd think after 50 years on this earth I'd have figured out how gravity works. 59, I said before I could stop myself. He glanced at me, brown eyes, gray at his temples, the kind of face that had been handsome once and now had settled into interesting. Lines from Laughing in Sun, not just stress. You don't look 59, he said. I rolled my eyes. Careful. That line comes pre-packaged with a midlife crisis. He smiled sheepish, not sleazy. Fair. Let me rephrase. You don't look like you walked in here to fight with fluorescent lighting. Most people do. That's because I've already been through a divorce, I said. After that, overhead bulbs are just annoying, not threatening. Oof, he said. Been there. He held out a hand, papers mostly corralled. I'm Mark, Natalie, I said, shaking it. His hand was warm, steady, no ring. Number B42, the woman at the camera called. That's me, I said. Try not to injure yourself again before your close-up, Mark. The DMV has a strict 1 concussion limit, he grinned. I'll do my best, Ms. Alvarez, I said, tasting it. Just got promoted. His eyebrows lifted, but my number had been called, and life marched on. I forgot him within an hour, or I thought I did. A few weeks later, I saw him again. Not on a dating app, not through friends. In the parking lot of the community center where I took pottery, I was lugging a box of my lopsided creations gifts. I'd decided, for people I knew wouldn't pretend they were store-bought. Careful with that, a voice said. It'd be a shame if those weapons didn't make it home. I turned. There he was. Same brown eyes, same slightly crooked smile, different setting. Well, if it isn't gravity's favorite victim, I said. He laughed. I knew it was you. Not many women carry breakable objects with that much confidence. That's called being divorced, I said. It recalibrates your sense of what's actually fragile. He shifted the gym bag on his shoulder. You do pottery here? Yes. I make emotionally honest bowls. He smiled. I teach the beginners woodworking class. We make shelves that lean to the left and call it artistic license. That sounds about right for beginners, I said. Got a lot of lean in my life too. He nodded toward my box. Here, let me help. Unless you're collecting examples for a lawsuit against the kiln manufacturer. I let him take the heavier side. Might as well let someone else carry something for once. We walked to my car. So, Miss Alvarez, he said, rolling the name like he remembered. Are you newly divorced? Or just newly renaming? Both, I said. My ex-husband recently discovered an allergy to fidelity. Ouch, he winced. Mine discovered an allergy to honesty. Klitsch, really. After 40, they should hand out pamphlets. How long? I asked. Divorced 2 years, he said. Married 24. She left. Not for someone else. Just left. Said she'd spent her whole life being someone's something and wanted to see who she was without the someone. I considered that. How's that working out for her? He shrugged. Don't know. We don't talk much. It was ugly at the end. Lawyers, accusations, the works. I tried to hold on. Eventually realized I was trying to keep a ghost. That hit somewhere tender. I was the opposite, I said. I kept the ghost and ignored the corpse. When the truth finally sat on my kitchen table, it was just confirmation. His gaze softened. That sounds rough. It was, I said. And now it's not. Not as much anyway. We loaded the box into my trunk. You know what the worst part is? I added. I didn't even cry when I caught him. My eyes were too busy rolling. He laughed. A real laugh. From the belly. You're something else. You know that? So I've been told, I said. Usually by men who underestimate me right before their financial portfolios rebalance. He whistled softly. Remind me never to get on your bad side. That's easy, I said. Tell the truth. Keep your pants on at my house. And don't assume my labor is free. It's a short list. We stood there for a moment in the chilly air. Two strangers whose stories had weirdly similar outlines. You want to get coffee? He asked suddenly, strictly as fellow veterans of marital nonsense. My first instinct was to say no. I had a whole speech prepared for situations like this. I'm taking time for myself right now. I'm not ready to date. My heart's in recovery. Ask again in 3 years. But something about the way he asked, no pressure, no smirk, no you owe me because I carried the heavy box, made those words feel outdated. Yes. I heard myself say, coffee sounds good. Our first coffee was supposed to be 20 minutes. It turned into 3 hours. We met at a small place between the community center and my house. Not the same cafe where I confronted Jade. Different energy. Fewer ghosts. We talked about easy things first. Classes, hobbies, our mutual hatred of DMV waiting rooms. Then came the heavier stuff in slow leaks. He told me about losing his brother 5 years ago and how grief turned his marriage into something brittle. I told him about my mother's death and how I'd held everyone else's grief like a waitress carrying too many plates. He confessed that for the first year after his divorce, he'd tried desperately to prove he was still desirable, dating women who reminded him of who he'd been at 30. It exhausted him. I admitted that for 30 years, I'd made myself smaller so Daniel's ego could fit through doorways. You don't seem small, Mark said. That's because I stopped shrinking, I replied. Turns out, I take up more space than I thought. Good, he said simply. You should. He didn't give advice unless I asked. He didn't tell me how to get over it or say not all men. He didn't treat me like a victim or like a cautionary tale. He treated me like a person, fully formed, slightly dented, still functional. When we finally got up to leave, the cafe was closing. Same time next week? He asked. I hesitated. Slow, I said. If we're doing this, it has to be slow. I have a lot of stuff in my head that's still rearranging itself. Slow is my favorite speed, he said. Fast is how I made most of my mistakes. I smiled. Then yes, next week. Falling in love at 59 is not like falling in love at 25. At 25, you mistake electricity for compatibility. You think a racing heart means fate, not just hormones and unresolved childhood issues high-fiving each other. At 59, your body still remembers electricity but your brain asks for references. So I watched. I watched how he treated the barista when she messed up his order. He tipped her anyway and told her not to worry. I watched how he talked about his ex-wife, with sadness, not venom. He owned his part in the mess. I watched how he listened when I talked about Daniel. He didn't compare. He didn't say, well, I would never. He just listened. I made sure my kids knew I was seeing someone. My daughter's reaction surprised me. Good, she said, without hesitation. You deserve someone who's not emotionally allergic to monogamy. Language. I scolded out of habit, not taking it back. She said. Is he nice? Does he have kids? Is he a Republican? Because if he is, I'm going to need a week to process. I laughed. He has one daughter in Chicago. He likes dogs. hates mushrooms, and votes the way you'd approve of. Happy? Ecstatic, she said. When do I get to meet him? Slow, I reminded her. Okay, she said. But if you wait 10 years, I'm just going to crash one of your coffee dates. My son was more protective. Do I need to Google him? He asked. Background check? Make sure he's not planning to steal your identity or something. I'm pretty sure he's just planning to steal my time, I said. And maybe a bite of my croissant now and then. He said. Well, tell him if he hurts you, he'll have to deal with me. Oh please, I snorted. If he hurts me, I'll deal with him. You can hold my purse. That made him laugh, tension breaking. I'm proud of you, Mom, he said unexpectedly. For not curling up and disappearing. I tried that in my 30s, I said. Didn't suit me. Meanwhile, the final act of my revenge quietly unfolded. Not with screaming, not with scandalous Facebook posts, with numbers. Once the divorce dust settled and the signatures dried, I owned 50% of Daniel's construction company. At first, he assumed I'd be a silent partner. It's just a formality, he'd said in mediation. She doesn't know anything about the industry, which told everyone in the room that he hadn't been paying attention for 30 years. I knew plenty about his industry. I'd done his books, questioned his business trips, and watched his foreman come and go. I also knew something he didn't. One of his best site managers, Carlos, was quietly miserable working under him. I'd seen it for years, little sighs in our kitchen when Carlos came over to drop off paperwork, stories about Daniel overpromising to clients and underpaying his crew. So, a few months after the divorce, I invited Carlos for coffee. Relax, I said when he showed up looking like he'd been called to the principal's office. You're not in trouble. I don't even sign your checks. He smiled nervously. Yet, we sat, and I laid it out. How would you feel, I asked, about being part of something new? A smaller, better-run company, fair pay, clear contracts, no shady bookkeeping, half the stress, double the integrity. He stared. You want to start a new business? Yes, I said. I pulled out a spiral-bound notebook. I've been doing some research. There's demand for smaller, boutique renovation companies' kitchens, bathrooms, additions with good reputations. People are tired of contractors who disappear halfway through a job. He nodded slowly. We get calls all the time from clients who fired their first contractor. It's a mess. I've also been talking to Elaine, I continued. Remember my lawyer? He chuckled. How could I forget? She scares me in a good way. Same, I said. She walked me through how we could legally structure this. I can sell my half of Daniel's company back to him at market value, not the insult he initially offered, and invest that money in a new LLC we start. You run operations. I run the books and client relations. We hire people who actually like showing up sober. He blinked. Daniel will lose his mind. Daniel, I said, had the chance to keep me on his side. He chose a 30-year-old and a kitchen table. Actions, consequences. Carlos rubbed his jaw. He's going to say you're stealing his idea. His idea? I snorted. Construction existed before he discovered how to operate a drill. He doesn't own the concept of home renovation. Carlos laughed despite himself. You really want to do this? Listen, I said, leaning in. I spent 3 decades pouring my energy into other people's dreams. My ex-husbands, my kids, my mothers. I'm not complaining. I love them. But I've earned the right to build something of my own now. And I'd rather build with someone who respects the foundation. He sat back, eyes thoughtful. I need to think about it, he said. As you should, I replied. Take your time. Talk to your wife. But understand something, this isn't charity. I'm not offering you a gift. I'm offering you a partnership. If you say yes, we work hard together. No shortcuts, no cheating, not in business, not with people. He smiled slowly. I've been waiting 10 years for someone to say that, he said. I'll call you. 3 weeks later, he did. By then, I'd had more coffee dates with Mark. Still slow, still careful. He'd helped me set up a basic website for my pottery side hustle, Net Second Chances. It was half joke, half legit. I sold oddly shaped mugs and bowls with little handwritten notes, imperfect on purpose. Just like you. You know people are going to start taking these as metaphors, he'd teased. Good, I said. Maybe they'll stop expecting their lives to look like showroom kitchens. So when Carlos called and said, I'm in, I already had practice at starting small things and watching them grow. The day I sold my share of Daniel's company back to him was delicious. We met at Elaine's office again, neutral territory. He signed the transfer agreement with tight lips. The buyout number was not small. It reflected the true value of the company, which, frankly, existed largely because I'd kept their books from catching fire. "This is highway robbery," he muttered. "That would be if I took 80, I said sweetly. "This is just math. You remember math, right? The thing you forgot when you started comping hotel rooms?" Elaine coughed to hide a smile. I signed my side of the paperwork, handed the folder back, and stood. "Well," I said, picking up my purse. "It's been real. Try not to bankrupt yourself playing contractor cowboy. What are you going to do?" he demanded. "Sit on that money and knit?" "Oh, I'm going to knit something," I said. "Just not for you." I walked out lighter by one business and heavier by one check. Carlos and I filed our own LLC paperwork 2 weeks later. We named it True North Renovations. Mark suggested the name over dinner. "You like compasses," he'd said, pointing at the little compass necklace I'd bought myself after the divorce. "You said you felt like you'd been walking in circles for years. This company could be people's way of finding their way home, properly." "Leave it to a woodworker to come up with a metaphor," I'd said, "but I like it." We started small. One bathroom remodel for a retired teacher who'd been burned by 2 other contractors. "I'm warning you," she'd said on the first day, arms crossed. "If you disappear halfway through, I will egg your houses." "On holidays, ma'am," I said, "if we disappear halfway through, I will give you the eggs." She laughed. "Okay, I trust you." Trust. That word used to terrify me. Now, it felt like a challenge I was finally qualified to meet. And Mark? Well, we didn't fall into bed dramatically. There was no fireworks night kiss or rainstorm confession. Our love story grew like those little weeds that push up through cracks in the sidewalk, quiet, persistent, not particularly Instagrammable, but real. The first time he reached for my hand, we were walking out of the grocery store. I'd just complained about the price of blueberries. "But you bought them anyway," he'd said. "I've spent too much of my life denying myself small joys," I replied. "Now I buy the berries, and the good coffee, and the fancy soap that smells like oranges." "So what am I?" he asked. "The discounted canned beans? You're the reusable shopping bag," I said. "Unexpectedly sturdy. Makes everything easier to carry." He grinned and took my hand. It felt nice, not like an electric shock, more like sliding your fingers into a pair of gloves you didn't know were made for you. It took me months to let him see my bedroom, not because I was shy exactly, but because that room had been contaminated with old memories, old echoes, old shame. I'd repainted the walls a soft blue, bought new sheets, a new quilt, new pillows. I'd burned sage Ruth gave me, even though I wasn't sure I believed in that sort of thing. It made the air smell clean. That was enough. When I finally invited him in, I felt a ridiculous urge to apologize for the stretch marks, the soft stomach, the years. "I don't look like I did at 25, I said, standing there in a tank top and pajama pants, feeling oddly vulnerable. "Good," he said simply. "Neither do I. We'd look weird if we did." He touched my cheek gently. "I'm not here because you look like you're 25, he added. "I'm here because you look like you at 59. Because you laugh at yourself. Because you don't pretend you're okay when you're not. Because you call me on my crap. Because you know the difference between a bad day and a bad pattern." I swallowed. "And if I freak out and need to hit pause?" "Then we hit pause," he said. "I'm not on a clock." That was new. So we went slow. We built something with care. The way you'd build a good piece of furniture, measured, sanded, tested for wobble. We wobbled sometimes. Like when I found out Daniel was taking Jade to a wedding as his date. I'd thought I was fine, then I saw a photo pop up online, my ex-husband in a suit, her in a pale dress, standing in front of a flower arch where brides should stand. I didn't spiral, but I did sting. "What's going on?" Mark asked when I went quiet over dinner. I showed him the photo. "Ah," he said. "Apparently he's not ashamed enough to keep it private," I said. "Good for them. May their table never be stable." He waited a beat. "Do you want to talk about it? Or would you like me to tell you a story about the time I accidentally glued my hand to a table in high school shop class?" I blinked. "Why would that help?" "Because sometimes you need perspective," he said. "And sometimes you just need to laugh at someone who was an idiot long before your ex was." I laughed. He took my hand. "That picture doesn't erase what he did to you," he said. "It doesn't mean anything about your worth. It just means 2 people who aren't ready to do better yet are playing house. That's their journey. Yours is here, with your own table, your own company, your own blueberries, I rolled my eyes, mixing metaphors. Are we? I'm sleeping with a business-owning potter, he said. I'm allowed. Sleeping with. The phrase should have made me flinch. Instead, I smiled. You're right, I said. But just this once. People ask me sometimes, women, usually, in whispers, if I regret anything. Do you wish you'd left earlier? Do you wish you'd never married him? Do you wish you'd never trusted your friend? Here's the thing. Regret is a luxury you can drown in. Do I wish I hadn't spent 20 of my best years trying to convince myself crumbs were a meal? Yes. Do I wish I'd gotten a lawyer the first time I caught a whiff of something off instead of gaslighting myself because he swore I was overreacting? Absolutely. Do I wish I'd known, at 30, what I know now about money, about the law, about the quiet power of having your own bank account that no one else can touch? Without question. But do I regret the woman those years made me? No, because the woman I am now, the one who signs checks for her own company, who wakes up next to a man who asks, how's your heart? Instead of what's for dinner. She was forged in that fire. She learned to read contracts because no one else would. She learned to take screenshots before confronting anyone. She learned that silence can be sharper than shouting when used correctly. And she learned that you can be broken and brave at the same time. I saw Jade again, 2 years after the divorce. Not at a party, not at a grocery store, at a bookstore, of all places. I was in the self-help aisle, laughing to myself at a title that promised a 30-day glow up for your soul. Being over 60 had finally made me immune to that kind of marketing. Mrs. Shaw? A tentative voice said behind me. I turned. She was different. Hair shorter, face thinner, eyes older. It's Miss Alvarez now, I said gently. But yes. Hello, Jade. She held a book to her chest like a shield. I didn't think you'd ever want to see me again. I didn't say I want to, I said. But here we are. She winced deservedly. I broke up with him, she blurted. I raised an eyebrow. Congratulations. How many kitchen surfaces did it take you to figure out he wasn't a long-term investment? She flushed. I know I deserve that, but I wanted you to. I don't know that I'm not still in it. Why? I asked. Do you think it changes what you did? No, she said quickly. I know it doesn't. I'm in therapy now. I've been unpacking everything. Why I was drawn to him, why I believed him, why I was willing to hurt you just to feel wanted. Her eyes filled. My therapist said I should apologize to the people I've hurt if it wouldn't cause them more pain. She swallowed. So, I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm so sorry. I studied her. I believed her. I also knew her apology wasn't for me. Not really. It was for her own healing, for the blank page she was trying to start on. The old me, the version that lived to make everyone else comfortable, would have rushed to reassure her. It's okay. I forgive you. We all make mistakes. The woman standing in that bookstore knew better. It's not okay, I said calmly. You helped blow up my life. I will carry the consequences of your mistake for the rest of my days. That's just reality. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. But, I added, softer, I believe you're sorry. And I'm genuinely glad you got out before you wasted as many years as I did. That's something. Do you hate me? She whispered. Honestly, I said, some days, I don't think about you at all. On the days I do, I don't hate you. I hate what you and he did together. I hate the way you both treated my home like a set for your drama. But you're not the villain who kept me small. You're just the one who tore the curtain down. She blinked. What do you mean? You were the last straw, I said. Not the first, not the only, the last. In another world, it might have been someone else. Another woman, another lie, another receipt. You just happened to be the one on my table. She winced again. I'm rebuilding, I continued. Different, better, with stronger beams and fewer blind corners. You don't get credit for that, but you are part of the story. Which means, yeah, I accept your apology. For both of us. Fresh tears spilled over. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said. Live better. Choose men who don't need you to be their secret. Choose yourself before you become someone else's excuse. That's your penance. She nodded fervently. As she turned to go, I called after her. Jade? She looked back. Stay away from my ex-husband, I said. Not because I care what you do with him anymore, but because if you go back, you're not just hurting yourself. You're declaring you learn nothing. Don't be that girl. I won't, she said. I promise. I believed her. Or if I didn't, it didn't matter. I'd already closed that chapter. So here I am, 60 now, different last name, different table, different life. Some nights, Mark and I sit on the back porch with glasses of wine. My grandkids' chalk drawings cover the patio. The house has been renovated in little ways: fresh paint, new countertops, a bathroom that doesn't make me want to scream at my past self for accepting peeling cock for so long. You ever think about it? Mark asked once, on one of those evenings, the life you thought you'd have versus the one you got? Sometimes, I said, in the shower, or when I pass that hotel downtown and wonder if they've changed the comforters since my ex's little adventures. He snorted. But mostly, I added, I think about the women I know who are still where I was, walking on eggshells, doing emotional calculus to make everyone else comfortable, folding themselves into shapes that fit other people's expectations. And he prompted, and I want to grab them by the shoulders, I said, and say, get a lawyer, get a bank account, get a therapist, then get your life back. He raised his glass. You should put that on a mug. I did, I said. Bestseller on my website. We clinked glasses. He went inside to check the roast. I stayed out, watching the sky turn that hazy pink that always makes me feel like the world's been airbrushed. If you're a woman reading this anywhere on the arc I've walked, here's what I want you to know, from one scarred but standing soul to another. You are not stupid for trusting. You are not weak for loving. You are not a failure because someone treated your heart like a rental car. But your pain is not a life sentence. You are allowed to hire a lawyer and still be kind. You are allowed to freeze accounts and still be compassionate. You are allowed to take his name off the deed and still pray he grows up someday. You can fight smart without becoming cruel. You can walk away without setting fire to yourself to prove how burned you were. And you can fall in love again, not because you need someone, but because you want someone who matches the woman you've become, not the girl you were when you first accepted crumbs. I thought I'd die as Daniel's wife, a background character in a story centered on his moods. Instead, I am the main character of my own life now. I own a company. I own my home. I own my time. And I own the fact that I stayed too long and the fact that I finally left. When I look in the mirror now, I see all the versions of me stacked behind my eyes: the hopeful bride, the exhausted mother, the quiet wife with a cracked heart, the woman with a folder of evidence walking into a lawyer's office, the divorcee buying her own kitchen table, the business owner signing her first contract, the grandmother teaching her granddaughter how to whip egg whites properly. And I think, damn, we made it. No man, no betrayal, no kitchen table scandal can take that away. So if you ever find yourself standing in your own doorway, looking at a scene that knocks the breath out of you on a table, on a phone, in a ledger, hear my voice in your head. Don't scream, don't shrink, don't beg, get quiet, get evidence, get a plan. Then, step by step, get your life back. And if somewhere along the way, in a DMV line or a pottery class or a grocery store aisle, you meet someone who sees you, really sees you, don't assume you're too old for that kind of miracle. You're not. You're seasoned, not expired. You're complex, not complicated. You're wiser, not too much. I thought my story ended the day I walked in on my husband's betrayal. Turns out, that was just the end of Volume 1. Volume 2 is mine. And this time, I'm the one holding the pen.